The alien world of Larata had once been calm and full of quiet beauty. Its skies glowed with soft blue light, and its cities were built in harmony with nature. For generations, the people of Larata believed the universe, though vast and mysterious, was mostly peaceful. They were explorers, thinkers, and traders, not warriors. War was something they studied in history records, not something they expected to live through. That belief shattered the day the first enemy ships appeared at the edge of their star system. At first, the long-range sensors showed only strange shadows in deep space. The scientists thought it was a natural anomaly, maybe a cluster of dark matter or a rare cosmic storm. But within hours the shadows took shape. Massive ships, sharp and dark, moved with terrifying purpose. They were not exploring, they were hunting. The invaders did not send a greeting. They did not offer demands or warnings. They attacked without hesitation. Liratha's outer defense stations were destroyed in minutes. Communication relays went silent one by one, blinking out like dying stars. Civilian transport ships tried to flee but were cut down before they could jump to faster-than-light travel. The invaders' technology was far beyond anything Larata had ever faced. Panic spread across the planet. The ruling council gathered in emergency session, their faces filled with fear and disbelief. Reports flooded in from every region. Cities burned. Power grids failed. Orbital habitats were torn apart. The enemy ships moved closer, forming a tightening ring around the planet, sealing off any escape. Laretha's small defense fleet launched anyway. Brave pilots, knowing they were outmatched, flew into space to protect their home. Their ships were fast and well-designed, but they were not built for total war. Against the invaders' overwhelming firepower, they stood no chance. One by one, the defense ships were destroyed, their final transmissions filled with static and fading voices. On the planet below, families huddled in shelters. Children cried as the ground shook from orbital bombardment. Elders stared at the sky, watching flashes of light that marked the destruction of everything they had built. The idea that help would come began to fade. Larata had allies, but they were far away. Messages sent through normal diplomatic channels would take too long. Even if they arrived, those allies were not strong enough to fight an enemy like this. Everyone on the council knew the truth but did not want to say it out loud. They were alone. As the hours passed, the invaders began landing forces on the outer continents. Entire regions went silent. Refugee ships crowded the remaining spaceports, desperate to escape, but the blockade held firm. Every path out of the system was watched. Inside the central communication tower, a group of scientists and signal engineers worked without rest. They searched for any possible option, no matter how unlikely. One of them, an elderly signal specialist, suggested something that sounded like madness at first: a deep space SOS, not a targeted message, not a request sent to known allies, but a raw distress signal broadcast across the galaxy on every frequency they could reach. It would be weak, unfocused, and costly in energy. There was no guarantee anyone would hear it. Even if they did, there was no promise they would care. The council argued. Broadcasting such a signal would reveal even more of their position. It would drain critical power reserves. And worst of all, it would mean admitting total desperation. But what other choice did they have? As more cities fell and the invaders closed in on the capital, the council gave their approval. In the deepest level of the communication tower, ancient transmitters were brought back online. These systems had been designed long ago for experimental exploration signals, not emergency pleas. Engineers rerouted power from non-essential systems. Lights dimmed across the tower as energy was pulled into the broadcast array. The message itself was simple. There was no time for long explanations or diplomacy. The scientists encoded images of the planet, the attacking fleet, and the suffering population. Alongside the images was a basic translation key and a clear message repeated again and again. We are under attack. We face extinction. Any who hear this, we ask for help. As the countdown began, many in the room closed their eyes. Some whispered quiet prayers in their own languages. Others simply watched the screens, knowing this moment might be the last real hope their world would ever have. The signal was released. A powerful burst of energy surged outward, racing through space at the speed of light. It passed beyond Lirutha's moons, through the enemy blockade, and into the endless darkness between stars. With every second it grew weaker, stretching thinner as it traveled farther from its source. No one knew where it would go. No one knew who might hear it. Hours passed, then days. The invaders continued their assault. They seemed amused by the planet's resistance, as if playing with a creature already caught in a trap. Their commanders made no effort to hide their confidence. They had destroyed worlds before. This was just another conquest. Inside the shelters, hope became fragile. Some people believed the signal was useless, a final cry that would echo into silence. Others clung to it desperately, imagining unknown civilizations listening, deciding whether Larata was worth saving. In the communication tower, the signal engineers stayed at their stations, monitoring for any response. The screens remained empty. Static filled the speakers. Space, vast and uncaring, offered no immediate answer. Still, the signal kept traveling across empty star systems, past dying suns, through regions of space no Leviathan had ever imagined. It slipped between wars, civilizations, and ancient ruins, carrying with it the fear, pain, and hope of a dying world. By the time the invaders began their final approach toward the capital city, many believed the SOS had failed. But far away, in a region of space the Leviathans did not even know existed, the signal was about to be heard, and the universe would never be the same again. Far across the galaxy, in a region of space known for violent storms and unstable stars, humanity continued its routine patrols. Human space had never been peaceful. Their homeworld was classified by most alien species as a death world, a place where life survived through a constant struggle. From dangerous predators to natural disasters, humans had evolved by facing danger head-on. Because of this, many alien civilizations feared them. Some avoided human territory completely. Inside a massive listening station orbiting a red dwarf star, a human technician named Elias monitored deep space signals. Most of his work involved filtering noise, radiation bursts, star flares, and the endless background hum of the universe. True distress calls were rare, and when they appeared they were usually too late. Then something strange happened. A faint, irregular pulse appeared on the screen. It was weak, fragmented, and buried under layers of cosmic interference. At first Elias thought it was a sensor glitch, but the pattern repeated. It was not random. It had rhythm, meaning. Elias leaned closer, his heart beating faster. He adjusted the filters, isolating the signal bit by bit. As the noise faded, fragments of data became clear. Images, coordinates, a repeating message in an unknown language, but with a translation key attached. "This is not natural," he whispered. Within minutes, the station went into alert mode. Senior analysts arrived, followed by AI systems designed to decode alien communications. The signal was old by the time it reached them, stretched thin by distance, but it was unmistakable that it was an SOS. Asterisk. As the translation completed, silence filled the room. The message was simple, raw, and desperate. A civilization under attack, a world facing extinction, a plea sent into the dark with no guarantee of mercy. Some officers exchanged uneasy looks. Humanity had heard such calls before. Sometimes responding had led to long wars, political disasters, or betrayal. The galaxy was not kind to those who rushed in without thinking. The signal was immediately forwarded to Earth and the United Human Defense Council. On Earth, the council chamber filled with representatives from across human space. Military leaders, scientists, diplomats, and elected officials studied the data projected before them. The images showed burning cities, shattered ships, and terrified civilians. The enemy fleet was massive and ruthless. A debate began. Some argued that the signal could be a trap. Others warned that interfering might provoke a larger galactic conflict. Humanity already had enemies who watched closely for any excuse to strike. Resources were limited, and the distance was enormous, but others saw something different. They saw fear that could not be faked. They saw a people who had no weapons left, no allies coming, no future without help, and they remembered humanity's own past. Long ago, Earth itself had been divided, scarred by wars, disasters, and near-extinction events. Humanity had survived not because the universe was kind, but because they refused to abandon each other. That lesson had shaped them. A quiet voice finally broke the arguments. A veteran admiral, her face lined with years of battle, spoke calmly. "If we ignore this," she said, "we teach the galaxy that human strength means nothing. We did not become what we are to watch innocents die from a distance." The room fell silent. Humanity was feared because they were dangerous, but they were respected because when they chose to act, they acted fully, not for conquest, not for tribute, but for survival. The council voted. The decision was not unanimous, but it was clear. Humanity would respond. Across human-controlled space, orders were transmitted. Fleets on patrol changed course. Shipyards shifted from maintenance to full activation. Reserve forces were alerted. Long-dormant war protocols came online. Systems designed for extreme scenarios. On distant colonies, civilians watched the news feeds as alerts spread. Many recognized the signs. Humanity was preparing for war, but this war was different. In military academies, young cadets studied the incoming data. In hospitals, medics prepared for casualties. Engineers worked without rest, optimizing ships for long-range combat. Every part of human society moved with focused urgency. At the heart of it all was a shared understanding. Someone had asked for help. Meanwhile, deep within humanity's data archives, AI systems analyzed the enemy ships seen in the images. Their designs matched a species known for rapid conquest and total destruction. They did not negotiate. They erased. Humanity had faced similar enemies before. The AI simulations ran thousands of battle scenarios. Losses were predicted. Heavy losses. But victory was possible. When the results were presented to the council, no one flinched. Orders were finalized. The response would not be small. It would not be symbolic. Humanity would arrive with enough force to end the threat completely. As the fleets prepared, the original SOS signal was replayed one final time in the council chamber. The words echoed softly, "We face extinction." For humanity, those words carried weight. Extinction was not an abstract concept. It was a memory written deep into their history and instincts. The admiral who had spoken earlier stood and gave the final command. "Set course," she said. "Maximum speed. No delays." Across space, massive human warships powered up. Engines capable of surviving extreme gravity fields roared to life. Hulls designed to withstand impossible pressure locked into formation. These ships were not elegant. They were brutal, functional, and relentless. The galaxy had labeled humans as Deathworlders because they endured what others could not. Now, they were about to prove why. As the fleets began their journey, no message was sent ahead. No warning was given to the enemy. Humanity did not announce its arrival. They were coming because someone had cried out, "Into the dark," and humanity had answered. The human fleet moved through the cold darkness of space like a storm, gathering strength. Every ship was a machine of purpose, built to endure situations that would destroy most civilizations. From massive dreadnoughts to swift attack cruisers, each vessel carried weapons, shields, and crews trained for extreme conditions. There was no room for hesitation or error. Every commander, pilot, and engineer understood what was at stake. This was not just another mission. This was a rescue, a declaration, and a demonstration of what humanity could do when faced with desperation. As the fleet traveled, communication channels buzzed with quiet coordination. The crews were tense, but not fearful. Humans were accustomed to danger. They thrived in it. Simulations and drills had prepared them for countless scenarios. But nothing could fully convey the reality of heading into an unknown war zone on behalf of an alien civilization. Still, each person on board knew they carried more than weapons. They carried hope for lives that depended entirely on them. The bridge of the lead ship, commanded by Admiral Kayla Mirov, was a hive of activity. Holographic screens displayed the positions of all fleet members, the calculated trajectory to the distressed alien system, and the latest intelligence on enemy capabilities. Keller's sharp eyes scanned every update, every fluctuation in power and energy readings. Every detail mattered. Every mistake could be fatal. She had faced countless battles, but this mission was different. There was no personal glory, no strategic advantage for humanity. The only objective was the survival of an entire species. Below decks, engineers worked tirelessly. Humanoid and AI teams collaborated to optimize the ship's performance, recalibrating weapons, fortifying shields, and streamlining propulsion systems for maximum speed. Energy was redistributed to ensure the fleet could sustain prolonged combat without risking shutdowns. Every system hummed with focused energy, as if the ships themselves understood the gravity of the mission. The human fleet was a living machine, alive with purpose, carrying the combined knowledge, experience, and determination of generations. Meanwhile, pilots conducted simulations for immediate engagement scenarios. They studied the layouts and likely tactics of the enemy fleet, anticipating ambushes and traps. These were not just drills, they were mental rehearsals of survival, training the human reflexes to respond instantly to chaos. Each pilot knew that in space combat, a fraction of a second could decide the fate of entire planets. Despite the high stakes, there was a sense of calm focus. Fear existed, but it was controlled, harnessed, and transformed into determination. Long-range scanners first detected the enemy's shadows as the fleet approached the target system. Massive warships appeared on the sensors, more intimidating than anything humanity had faced in recent memory. Their hulls were dark and angular, designed to absorb punishment and intimidate opponents. The sheer number of ships alone was staggering, but it was the coordination and precision of their movements that caused a ripple of tension. Throughout the human command centers, the invaders had assumed this was an easy conquest. They had assumed the distressed aliens would die quietly. They had underestimated humanity. Admiral Kayla remained calm. Every tactical option was evaluated in real time. Communication between ships was encrypted, rapid, and silent to outside detection. Coordinated formations shifted as calculations predicted enemy maneuvers. Humans did not rush blindly into battle. They calculated, adapted, and exploited weaknesses. They were not just bringing force, they were bringing precision, strategy, and relentless persistence. As the fleet entered the outer edges of the alien system, the first signs of destruction became visible. Cities that once glimmered with lights were now smoldering ruins. Orbital debris from shattered defense platforms floated silently around the planet. Alien ships that had attempted to flee were scattered or destroyed. The invaders had unleashed their full might, expecting no resistance. What they saw approaching was beyond anything they anticipated. A human fleet, moving with the single-minded intent of turning the tide. On board the lead ship, Kayla reviewed the data of the alien civilization. She studied the maps of the planet, the locations of the remaining civilians, and the enemy positions. Every decision she made would ripple across hundreds of ships and thousands of lives. She instructed her officers to prepare non-lethal rescue measures as well. That humans would fight to destroy the enemy, but they would also ensure that survivors were safely recovered. Humanity was not only strong, it was precise and purposeful in its mercy. The AI systems running the fleet began to make preliminary combat adjustments. Shield frequencies were recalibrated to counter the specific energy signatures of enemy weapons. Offensive systems were optimized for maximum efficiency, using the unique characteristics of human-designed armaments. Each calculation was instantaneous, feeding into the human commander's decisions, creating a seamless blend of human intuition and machine precision. As the first skirmishes began on the outskirts of the system, the enemy realized too late that they were facing an opponent they could not intimidate. Human pilots and ships moved in perfect coordination, striking at key targets to break formations and create openings. The invaders attempted counterattacks, but every move was anticipated, every weakness exploited. Humanity's reputation as Deathworlders was not a myth. It was reality, the result of centuries of surviving the impossible. Even as destruction spread through the enemy fleet, the human crews kept their focus on the bigger picture. They were not here for revenge, glory, or conquest. They were here to save lives. Alien civilians who had survived the initial attacks were identified, rescue protocols deployed, and medical support prepared for immediate deployment. Every strike was calculated to minimize collateral damage, while maximizing the collapse of enemy operations. The psychological impact on the enemy was significant. Their confidence turned into confusion and fear. They had anticipated a weak, desperate prey. Instead, they were facing a predator with not only strength but strategy, endurance, and relentless determination. The human fleet was a force they could neither intimidate nor predict easily. Every moment, every maneuver reminded them that the situation was no longer theirs to control. Throughout the fleet, stories of heroism quietly unfolded. Pilots took impossible risks to protect alien escape pods. Engineers repaired critical systems mid-battle under extreme conditions. Soldiers coordinated boarding parties to disable enemy weapons without destroying the ships entirely, preserving evidence for intelligence purposes. Each act was part of a larger tapestry, a combination of courage, skill, and focus that defined humanity's approach to war. As the fleet advanced deeper into the system, the intensity of the battle increased. The invaders tried desperate maneuvers, including kamikaze attacks and diversion tactics. Yet the humans adapted. They remained fluid, reacting instantly, exploiting weaknesses, and maintaining formation. Even in chaos, there was control. Even in danger, there was purpose. The alien distress signal, once a faint and desperate pulse, now guided one of the most formidable fleets in the galaxy toward a system on the brink of annihilation. In the command centers and across the fleet, the realization grew. This was not just a mission, it was a statement. Humanity had not come for territory, not for glory, and not for conquest. They had come to answer a call that no one else had dared to respond to. Their presence alone changed the dynamics of the galaxy. For the first time, the distressed aliens had hope, and the invaders understood that they had underestimated the wrong species. As the first coordinated attacks began, human ships struck with precision, disabling key enemy vessels and clearing paths for rescue operations. Every action was deliberate, calculated, and aligned with a larger objective of saving lives. The fleet moved like a living organism, each ship functioning as both weapon and guardian. Humanity's presence transformed the system from a scene of hopeless devastation into a battlefield where the balance of power could shift rapidly. Even the youngest cadets and newest recruits on board understood their role. There was no room for hesitation or doubt. Each action, no matter how small, could affect the lives of thousands of aliens depending on them. Training and experience converged, creating a force that was disciplined, adaptable, and unstoppable. The fleet became a manifestation of human resilience, intelligence, and determination, a true embodiment of the Deathworlder legacy. As the battle raged on, the human fleet closed in on the central stronghold of the enemy. The outer defenses had been weakened, their coordination broken. Every ship that survived the initial human attacks now faced an enemy that was prepared, ruthless, and united in purpose. The humans advanced steadily, unstoppable, driven by the urgency of the SOS that had reached them across the stars. The alien survivors, hidden in shelters and escape pods, began to sense a shift. The ships moving through space were different from the enemy vessels that had terrorized them. There was precision, control, and protection. The human fleet was not only bringing destruction to their oppressors but also a chance to survive, to live, and perhaps to rebuild. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the cries of the desperate were met with action. Every moment in this phase of the mission reinforced the central truth. Humans did not fight for conquest, they fought for justice, for survival, and for the hope of others. Their journey through the system was more than a military operation. It was a demonstration of purpose, coordination, and unwavering commitment. Every strike, every maneuver, and every calculated risk brought them closer to turning the tide of the war and answering the SOS that had crossed the galaxy. By the time the fleet reached the inner system, where the most heavily defended regions of the enemy were located, it was clear that humanity's intervention was more than military might. It was strategy, precision, and compassion in perfect balance. The Deathworlder fleet was no longer a rumor, no longer a distant legend. It was a living, moving force, ready to challenge the impossible and ensure that the desperate call for help would not go unanswered. The battle had begun, and humanity was fully awake, fully prepared, and fully committed to saving lives, defeating the enemy, and proving why the galaxy had always feared and respected them. Asterisk. The human fleet had reached the heart of the alien system, and the scale of the battle became truly clear. The enemy had gathered all remaining forces near the capital world of the distressed civilization. Massive warships, some larger than entire human cities, surrounded the planet in tight, precise formations. Their weapons bristled and their defenses glowed with lethal energy fields. They believed the humans would hesitate when faced with such overwhelming odds, that they would calculate the risk and perhaps retreat. They were wrong. Humanity did not retreat. Humanity adapted, calculated, and struck with unmatched speed. Admiral Kayla Marove commanded from the lead ship, her focus absolute. She reviewed the layout of the enemy formation, the location of the alien civilians, and the coordinates of the planet's few surviving defense satellites. Every decision she made would ripple across thousands of ships and countless lives. Communication lines buzzed with updates from captains and pilots, AI analyzers of energy fields, and the status of rescue operations. There was no chaos. Every movement was synchronized. The human fleet moved like a single, living organism. The first wave of engagement began with precision strikes. Long-range cannons targeted the enemy command ships, aiming to disrupt their coordination. Missile swarms, guided by AI, weaved through energy shields, striking engines and weapons arrays. Smaller human vessels flanked the enemy, creating pressure from multiple directions. The invaders attempted counterattacks, firing massive beams and releasing fighter squadrons. But humans anticipated these moves, adapting their formation and responding instantly. For every attack there was a calculated counter, for every maneuver, a prepared trap. Below decks, engineers worked feverishly. Ships had already sustained minor damage during the approach, but every system was patched and optimized in real time. Shield generators were pushed to their limits, energy reserves redistributed, and weapons recalibrated to maximize efficiency. The AI systems constantly predicted enemy movements, feeding data to commanders so that every shot, every maneuver was calculated for maximum impact. Human technology and ingenuity combined to form a machine more precise than any alien could imagine. The battle intensified as the fleet closed in on the planet itself. Enemy ships attempted to form defensive barriers, protecting key orbital stations and civilian evacuation routes. They unleashed waves of drones and fighter ships, hoping to overwhelm the humans with numbers. Human pilots, however, had trained for chaos. They dodged, countered, and struck with lethal precision. Every attack was meant to disable, not to kill unnecessarily, preserving life whenever possible. Humanity fought not for conquest, but for protection. Within the enemy formation, confusion began to spread. The invaders had been confident, relying on their numerical superiority and superior technology. Now, their formations were breaking. Ships were disabled or destroyed in rapid succession. Their commanders struggled to coordinate defense against an enemy that was fast, unpredictable, and brutally effective. The psychological impact was immense. The invaders had never faced opponents who combined intelligence, strategy, and sheer determination so effectively. Meanwhile, human rescue teams deployed to the surviving alien ships and shelters, pods and transport craft navigated the chaotic battlefield, retrieving civilians and carrying them to safety. Medics prepared for immediate treatment of injuries, while engineers worked to stabilize the damaged alien ships. Humanity's approach was methodical. Eliminate the threat, protect survivors, and restore order. For the first time since the invasion began, the alien civilization saw hope. The humans were not here to conquer, they were here to save them. The outer layers of enemy defense were eliminated first, creating openings for the main assault. Human ships concentrated firepower on the central command vessels. Missiles struck with precision, beams of energy cut through the toughest armor, and boarding teams neutralized weapons from within. The invaders tried desperate measures, ramming attacks, sacrificial kamikaze ships, and unpredictable maneuvers, but the humans adapted at every step. Each failure of the enemy's plan only strengthened the resolve of the fleet in the middle of the chaos. The human fleet maintained coordination. The smaller, faster ships scouted and harassed enemy formations, while the larger ships delivered overwhelming firepower. Human technology and experience worked in harmony. Advanced targeting systems combined with human intuition to exploit weaknesses in the enemy shields and armor. Every move was calculated, and every risk was measured. No detail was overlooked. The aliens were formidable, but humanity's combination of strategy, technology, and relentless determination was unmatched. As the battle raged, the alien civilians on the planet below could see the humans in action. The sky was filled with streaks of light lasers, missile trails, and explosions. Initially, fear gripped them, thinking these were more attacks, but soon, they noticed the difference. The humans were targeting the invaders, not the planet. Ships moved to protect evacuation points. Rescue pods appeared where survivors were trapped. Humans were fighting to ensure life, not to destroy it. Hope began to spread. Admiral Kayla observed the progress from the bridge, her face calm but focused. The enemy's central command ships were now exposed, Their defenses fractured, human ships concentrated firepower, overwhelming shields and disabling weapons. The invaders launched a final desperate attack, hoping to crush the human fleet with sheer force. But humans anticipated this. Coordinated maneuvers neutralized the threat, and the central enemy vessels were disabled, their control over the fleet broken. Chaos spread among the invaders as their remaining forces struggled to reorganize. Human boarding teams moved in to ensure that enemy command structures were neutralized. Every captured ship provided intelligence for the survivors and ensured that the remaining threat could not regroup. Meanwhile, the remaining alien civilians were evacuated to secure locations. With humans providing food, medical aid, and protection, the system was gradually transformed from a battlefield of despair into a controlled rescue operation. The psychological effect on the invaders was devastating. Their confidence shattered. They realized they were not fighting just a military force, they were facing an organized, relentless, and adaptable species. Each human action demonstrated precision, strategy, and moral purpose. The Deathworlders were not only destroying the enemy, they were showing the galaxy what it meant to respond to a desperate call for help. By the end of the engagement, most of the enemy fleet was destroyed or forced to retreat. Remaining forces scattered across space, their morale broken. Human ships moved through the system systematically, ensuring no survivors among the enemy could threaten the rescued aliens. Civilians were secured, and essential infrastructure was stabilized as much as possible. What had begun as a chaotic, desperate battle had ended in decisive victory. The alien survivors, once cowering in shelters and escape pods, emerged to see the humans in orbit above them. They had been saved. Their civilization, though battered, still had a chance to survive. The humans had arrived not for conquest, not for vengeance, but for protection. Their actions had changed the course of history for an entire species. Even as the battle ended, the human fleet remained vigilant. They did not celebrate immediately. They ensured every threat was neutralized, every survivor protected, and every system secured. Humanity's approach was careful, precise, and controlled. Victory was measured not in destruction alone, but in lives saved and futures preserved. The invaders had underestimated humans, thinking them motivated only by fear or aggression. Instead, they had faced a force guided by strategy, resilience, and morality. The humans had proven that power combined with intelligence and compassion could change the outcome of impossible situations. The alien civilization witnessed not only their salvation but also the demonstration of what it meant to have humanity as an ally. By the time the last enemy vessel was neutralized, the system was quiet again. Fire still burned on the surface, but survivors were safe. Rescue teams continued their work, helping civilians and stabilizing damaged infrastructure. Humans coordinated logistics for long-term recovery, ensuring the aliens could begin rebuilding. Every action was methodical, precise, and purposeful. The story of the battle spread quickly across the galaxy. Aliens who had observed or heard of the human intervention began to see a different truth. Humanity was feared because it was strong, yes, but it was respected because it acted with purpose, strategy, and moral clarity. They were a species that would not ignore cries for help, no matter the danger, no matter the cost. For the rescued civilization, this battle was more than survival. It was a lesson. Across the stars, news would spread that humanity, the feared Deathworlders, had come not to conquer, but to save. The galaxy would remember that when the desperate called out, humans answered. And they did so with overwhelming skill, courage, and precision. The victory in the alien system was complete. The enemy was broken. Civilians were safe. Humanity had demonstrated its power, resilience, and moral purpose. And in the silent void of space, as the human fleet maintained orbit, one truth became clear. No SOS would go unanswered while humanity had the strength to respond. Humanity had entered the system as an unknown force, but they left as legends, saviors whose arrival had shifted the balance of life and hope across a distant star system. The battle would be remembered not just for its violence but for the courage, strategy, and unwavering determination that defined humans as a species unlike any other in the galaxy. The battle had ended, and the alien system, once filled with chaos and fear, now lay in a fragile calm. Human ships still hovered in orbit, their engines humming softly as crews monitored the system for any remaining threats. Every alien survivor, whether on the planet's surface or in orbit, was accounted for. Medical teams worked tirelessly, attending to the wounded, while engineers helped stabilize damaged habitats, repair power grids, and clear debris from key cities. Humanity's presence was not just about destruction, it was about restoration. For the first time since the invasion began, the aliens could breathe, knowing they were safe at least for now. The survivors emerged from shelters with cautious hope. They had seen the destruction, the death, and the hopelessness that had consumed their world for days. But now above them, human warships floated in disciplined formation, a symbol not of fear, but of protection. Alien children, who had spent hours cowering from enemy fire, stared at the ships with wide eyes. They had seen a force capable of unimaginable power, yet they had also seen restraint, precision, and care. Humans had destroyed the enemy, but they had preserved life whenever possible, even going so far as to rescue the enemy prisoners to prevent unnecessary deaths. Admiral Kayla Marove walked the bridge of her ship, observing the calm after the storm. The human fleet remained vigilant, but there was a quiet sense of accomplishment among the crew. Each officer, pilot, and engineer knew the impact of their actions. They had arrived when hope was fading, fought with unyielding skill, and now ensured the survival of an entire civilization. No one celebrated with fanfare. Humanity did not fight for glory. Their satisfaction was quiet, rooted in the knowledge that they had made a difference when it truly mattered. The alien leaders, once hiding in fear, were now able to address their people. They spoke of survival, of courage, and of the humans who had arrived when the galaxy had been silent. Stories spread quickly across the planet of pilots who had taken incredible risks to save children, of engineers who repaired failing stations under fire, and of soldiers who had prevented the enemy from targeting hospitals and shelters. The aliens began to understand the humans' reputation as death. They had heard legends of humanity's resilience and strength, but witnessing it firsthand was something else entirely. It was awe-inspiring, terrifying, and comforting all at once. As rescue operations continued, humans established communication channels to coordinate the evacuation of civilians still in dangerous zones. Transport ships navigated debris fields and enemy wreckage to bring survivors to safety. Medics administered treatments for burns, broken bones, and radiation exposure, while psychological support teams helped alien survivors cope with the trauma they had endured. Every step of the operation was methodical. Humanity's approach combined efficiency with compassion, demonstrating not only their technological and tactical superiority, but their understanding of life and survival. The aliens began asking questions. Who were these humans? Why had they come? Why risk so much to save a civilization they had never met? The humans answered simply, because someone had called for help and they could. That was enough. For humanity, no plea for help was ever insignificant. It did not matter whether the species was known, powerful, or strategically important. If they could respond, they would respond. The aliens were struck by the simplicity and power of this principle. Humanity had no hidden agenda. They did not expect tribute, loyalty, or control. They acted because it was the right thing to do. As the humans worked, word of the intervention began to spread beyond the system. Neighboring alien civilizations, once hesitant to approach, watched transmissions of the rescue. The myth of humanity as a merciless Deathworlder species began to shift. They were still feared, but now they were also respected, even admired. A pattern became clear. When the galaxy cried out in desperation, humanity responded with unmatched efficiency, courage, and moral clarity. It was a combination that no other species could match. The alien children, who had only known terror for the past days, now ventured outside under the careful watch of human patrols. They touched the ground of their cities, still hot from enemy bombardment, and saw ruins alongside recovery efforts. Humans had not only saved lives, but had begun helping rebuild infrastructure. Cranes lifted debris, medical units set up clinics, and engineers repaired critical systems. The planet, though scarred, began to show signs of hope and renewal. This presence sent a strong message. Humanity did not just fight wars, they ensured life could continue afterward. Meanwhile, human pilots performed sweep operations in orbit. They removed lingering threats, neutralized remaining enemy drones, and secured escape routes for any remaining refugees. There was no rush, but every movement was purposeful. Humanity's discipline in war extended to peacetime operations, reflecting a philosophy that victory was incomplete unless those they saved could survive and rebuild. The aliens began to observe the humans in action, not just as warriors, but as protectors. Every ship, every maneuver, and every calculated strike reinforced the reality that humanity was a species shaped by survival, yet guided by a strong moral compass. Across the system, alien leaders worked alongside human officers to organize the recovery. Data sharing, planning, and coordination accelerated the process. Alien scientists learned from human engineers, discovering new ways to stabilize power grids, repair vessels, and rebuild cities. The humans shared knowledge generously, without ego or expectation. Their intent was clear: ensure that this civilization, which had been on the brink of extinction, could survive and thrive. Even the smallest victory, saving a child trapped under debris, repairing a hospital generator, stabilizing a food supply, were treated with the utmost care and attention. During this time, the survivors began to understand more about the humans themselves. They learned of their history on a harsh planet called Earth, where survival had forged extraordinary resilience. They learned of human adaptability, creativity, and the ability to overcome impossible odds. The aliens began to see a connection between humanity's past and their present actions. Humans were not just capable of incredible violence, they were capable of incredible compassion, courage, and wisdom. The aliens also learned the true meaning behind humanity's fearsome nickname, Deathworlders. It was not a title given lightly. It reflected a species that had survived countless threats, both natural and artificial, and emerged stronger each time. But the humans' intervention in this system revealed something more. The same strength that allowed them to survive harsh conditions was now directed outward to save others. Humanity's power was not a tool for dominance, it was a shield for those who could not defend themselves. Even the invaders who had been defeated would remember the humans' arrival. They had underestimated them, expecting hesitation, caution, or negotiation. Instead, they faced a force that combined overwhelming power, strategy, and moral clarity. The humans had entered a system on the verge of extinction and left it alive and protected. That fact alone would echo across star systems for generations. The story of the human intervention became a lesson in courage, precision, and the importance of answering a call for help no matter the cost. As the immediate recovery operations concluded, humans began to withdraw in an organized manner. They left the alien civilization in capable hands, with resources, plans, and knowledge to continue rebuilding. There were no parades, no ceremonies, no demands for recognition. Humans had acted because it was necessary. They had answered a desperate call, protected lives, and shown the galaxy what it meant to combine strength with purpose. Before departure, Admiral Kayla Mirov addressed the alien leaders. Her voice, calm but firm, carried a message of reassurance. We do not conquer, we do not claim, we act when help is needed. Survive, rebuild, and know that the galaxy is not always silent. The alien leaders nodded, their eyes filled with gratitude, respect, and awe. Humanity had arrived at the darkest hour and ensured that hope endured. As the human fleet departed, the system gradually returned to normalcy. Alien survivors began repairing homes, restoring communications, and resuming daily life. The memory of the human fleet lingered, not as invaders, but as saviors. Children would tell stories of the giant ships in the sky, and adults would recount the precision, bravery, and moral clarity of the humans who had saved them. Across the galaxy, the legend of humanity's intervention would grow. The SOS that had been sent from the alien civilization had crossed light years of space, reaching beings they had never imagined would care. Humanity had not hesitated. They had brought their full strength, strategy, and intelligence to ensure the survival of those who called for help. That single act resonated across the universe. No matter how distant or desperate the cry, humans could and would answer. In the silence that followed, the alien civilization began to understand a profound truth. The universe was vast and often cruel, but somewhere among the stars, a species existed that would rise in response to suffering. They would fight, protect, and endure. Humanity had proven that when the desperate cried for help, the Deathworlders answered not for glory, not for conquest, but because it was the right thing to do. And as the human fleet vanished into the dark expanse of space, leaving behind a system saved from annihilation, one certainty remained. The universe had witnessed a power unlike any other. Humanity had arrived, changed the course of history for a civilization on the brink, and shown that in the vast emptiness of space, hope could travel faster than fear, and courage could overcome even the most impossible odds. The story of that day would be told for generations. A reminder that when someone calls for help, humanity is listening, watching, and ready to act.